Baby, it's time to talk about the most talked about movie of 2019. Actually, I'm pretty sure that was the Joker, but I'm gonna let them have the marketing because I guess like the President of the United States talked about this one, so that's pretty impressive. So we're talking about The Hunt. So this was pretty much one of the most talked about movies of the summer of 2019. It blew up very quickly when the controversy started to spread. And the main premise of this movie is that people wake up in the woods with ball gags in their mouth and they start getting hunted. And this is not remotely a new premise, and obviously killing people in movies is not a new premise. But from The Dangerous Game on, we've had a ton of movies that have specifically dealt with humans hunting other humans. But there were a handful of things that really stirred the controversy around this specific movie, even though there has been like 4 or 5 Purge movies, all of which got pretty damn political. But it was the fact that the people that were being hunted in this movie seemed to be of conservative/Republican backgrounds, and they're actually referred to in some of the trailers as deplorables. And the people who were doing the killing were like liberally Democratic aligned rich people who were being referred to as the elites. I'd also like to say that no one really refers to themselves by these names unless they're joking or calling out the fact that they're being referred to that, which is very on point with what we see nowadays when those two groups really amp up and feud. I'm also pretty sure this was originally called Red State versus Blue State, so its intentions are pretty clear. But the interesting thing that ended up happening here is that Trump ended up tweeting about it in a very negative way, and then obviously calling out the fact that this type of divisive filmmaking should just not be tolerated. But I thought that was interesting because in movies where someone is being hunted, they're typically the good guys. Like, those are the people that you're rooting for. Like when you watch something like Ready or Not, you're not rooting for the family that's trying to take out Samara Weaving. Honestly, the only thing I can really think of where you're rooting for the people doing the hunting is Inglourious Bastards, probably, but it's also just very obvious from the tone of the trailer that the people who are doing the hunt are coming across as these cold, crazy people that you're not supposed to be rooting for. So I always found those comments really interesting. For one, no one had really seen the movie yet unless they were part of like the test groups. And two, the trailer really did make it seem like those were the people you were supposed to be rooting for. Like those were your protagonists that you were going to be following through the movie. So I always thought those comments were really interesting. I actually have an entire video on my channel just talking about the controversy and the fact that like people get really riled up about something that they haven't even seen yet just based on a couple comments. And I thought that a lot of the backlash was really misguided. Now, obviously at the same time this was happening, there was a tragic event that happened in Dayton, Ohio. And people coming from it on that standpoint, I can kind of get, even though the studies support that like movies, video games, and things of that nature do not increase violent behavior, I did understand why Universal ended up coming up with a statement saying that they were going to, push back the release. They actually used a couple of different things. First, they said they were canceling the release, but then acknowledging that it wasn't the right time for the movie to be released. So I was pretty sure it was still going to see release, whether it was through a streaming platform or theatrically. I didn't think it was going to go away forever. And then sure enough, here it is in March, and they really amped up the whole, like, this is the most controversial movie of 2019, the most discussed, the most talked about, and that's very prominently featured on all the posters, so they really steered into it. Which I'm fine with, because like I said, most of the controversy was stupid, really countered what it seemed like they were going for in the trailer, and also people hadn't seen it, and the people who had seen it had been pretty open about the fact that, and even the director was like, this isn't supposed to be, like this side is better than this side. So the big thing to note here is that this is a political satire. I think that at least came across very obvious in the trailer to me, but there is a lot going on in this movie, and it calls out everyone. For the people that are worried that it's pro this or pro that, or that it's running some kind of agenda, it's really not in the slightest. Essentially, I saw this as a movie that calls out extremist attitudes from the left and the right and how easy it is to ramp up, especially in this current climate. So that obviously means it's going to get pretty divided views because some people, for one, don't understand satire, and two, even the people that do don't like being called out on things that might represent the group they align with. But it is kind of sad that there's just a lot of people who genuinely don't have the ability to laugh about themselves or laugh at the more extreme sides of whatever ideology they align with. And those are the type of people that won't be able to get past that kind of stuff when they're watching this. Which is a shame, because obviously there's stuff in this that is like way too on the nose. But overall, I really appreciate what they were trying to do here, because that's always kind of been one of my main complaints, and I think it's only getting worse. And we can all be kind of guilty of that like my way or nothing mentality, and I do think that like understanding in certain situations is just better. There's certain things that like polar, I'm never gonna agree with the other side on, but just yelling at the other side is not gonna help change anything. So it's kind of nice that what they were trying to do here, I think. It also definitely deals with the preconceived notions that people will make about others based on where they're from and who it seems like they might align with, which is definitely something that I can relate to, and I'm sure a lot of people can too, to some capacity. Beyond all that though, this is a highly entertaining movie. If you like action comedies with some like over-the-top violence, you'll probably have a good time with this. I really can't think of a dull moment in this film, but it's not so action-packed that it doesn't give you a moment to breathe and kind of take in what's going on otherwise. And I can see that some people might have the complaint that you don't really get to know a lot of the characters and a lot of them just feel like cannon fodder. But the standout performance in this is truly Betty Gilpin. She's honestly just incredible here. At first you don't really know anything about her, who she is, where she's from, but the movie just kind of slowly starts to reveal things about her character, which just makes her better. She's got this real quirky, nerdy behavior, but it's all wrapped up in these badass combat skills, and I love it. And honestly, Emma Roberts fans are in for a real treat. And the final fight scene in this is just great. Even just from like a cinematography standpoint, I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it was. It does this really cool thing where the camera stays in the house while they're still fighting outside the house, and it's like panning by the windows, catching their fight as it goes, and then they just kind of like bust back in the house. Like very, very fun. Like it's a very fun fight scene to watch just because of like little camera maneuvers and things like that. And even when you're noticing that they're doing these things, it still feels very fluid and dynamic. It's also got some nice parables, like an extended telling of like the tortoise and the hare story, and there's like this moment where they're talking about Animal Farm, which kind of reminded me of Daryl and Oscar from The Office talking about Citizen Kane.
Rosebud didn't explain why he was how he was.
It's a different school of thought. Let's just agree to disagree.
No, you're wrong.
So I do really think this movie succeeds in a lot of areas, but I totally understand that it's not going to be for everyone. But I do hope that the people that are criticizing it are actually watching it and not just going on just like bait headlines. So like I said, this movie is doing its best to call out both sides. But as I mentioned, the trailer actually does such an incredible job of like burying what's actually happening in this movie, which almost never happens. But now I'm really itching to talk about some of the spoilers towards the end of the movie. So if you don't want any of those, click to this point in the video to get my final thoughts and conclusions and just to kind of help me in the algorithm. So I'd appreciate it. So if you don't want any spoilers, click to this point now. Click to this point now. Spoilers! But this movie starts off with a text conversation where you see people referring to others as deplorables and talking about something called the manor. And in the text, there are people being like, oh my god, I thought we weren't going to talk about the manor through text. And it's at this point that the hunt itself starts. And it's not until about 2/3 of the way through the movie that we go back to that text conversation and kind of understand what the context behind it was. So it actually jumps back 1 year to address that text thread, which is revealed to have essentially just been a series of really poor taste jokes. Hilary Swank's character is essentially being informed that she's gonna have to step down from her position, otherwise she's going to be fired because all of these text threads ended up leaking. And there's a huge group of people on the internet who actually think they're rounding up humans and bringing them to Vermont to hunt them for sport. Okay, well the lighting for this whole video definitely just changed because the sun decided to come out and it's reflecting against the snow and just beaming back in here, so it's fine. Here we go. But yeah, that's something that's super pertinent in today's culture. People either saying or doing something stupid on the internet, either as a joke or serious, and then those conversations get leaked, and it all just comes back to bite them on the ass. The manor in this situation is a 3-bedroom house, and there's no hunting happening there. But you might be thinking, well, Amanda, there's clearly hunting going on in this movie. How is it a lie or a joke? Well, all the people on this text thread end up losing their jobs, so they decide to go book out a mansion in Croatia, bribe a bunch of people, and actually do it. Hilary Swank was basically like, you guys decided it was true, talked about it on the internet, and now we made it real. Which is honestly insane, but don't worry, the movie is fully aware that it's insane. And it's at this moment that Betty Gilpin's character is like, I don't want to disappoint you, but y'all got the wrong Crystal. None of that stuff you said was true. Which I thought was fun because the reason why they picked her was based on a tweet that she put out there, and her account name is Justice for Y'all, which I thought was great. But the profile picture is somebody giving her the finger. So I was like, why is her profile picture someone giving her the finger? I guess that could kind of make sense, but I was like, maybe that account is the person who's giving her the finger, which I do actually think is what happens. They don't fully address that, but I also think that that was a really interesting commentary on things that happen now where people think they have the right person and then they just immediately start dogpiling on somebody who might literally have nothing to do with a certain situation. I was literally just talking about that last week with my Guns Akimbo video. We see this from both sides all the time, and it gets exhausting. It gets so exhausting. So overall, I had a really fun time watching this. I'll definitely watch it again once it hits streaming, or even if a friend wants to see it again, I'd definitely go watch it in theaters. There's obviously movies that acknowledge social and or political divides better than this. For example, the 2019 Academy Award winner for Best Picture, Parasite, deals with the social aspect of this just phenomenally. But I don't know if there's a movie that deals with the flaws of both sides as evenly as this. This movie is also, as expected, very American. The ideas presented are not exclusively American, and these are things that happen worldwide, but obviously just the nature of the film is so American, and even the humor is very American, so I definitely think that could contribute to a divide in how people are enjoying it. But yeah, that's The Hunt. Pretty fun movie overall. If you liked Ready or Not, or you're into bloody action comedies, this is probably worth checking out. Stay safe out there, wash your hands with soap and water, and if you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing if you're into that kind of thing, and maybe leave it a little like. Thanks as always to my Patreon supporters. Hope you're all having a fantastic day, and we'll catch you all later.